I think it's finally time to come clean about something. People are always asking, Josh, why does the show always start late? Why is it always starting at different times, somewhere after 4:30? Whose fault is it really? And, I've often said Seth has a very important real-time day job, but he does an incredible job at actually balancing all of those things and being able to do all of the things that he does at such a high level that, he's usually on time. And so that's not totally fair. And yes, Nate Taylor does have a tendency to show up moments before press conferences begin or moments after podcasts were scheduled to begin.
It's my specialty.
It's what he does. He's Nate Taylor. You can finally admit the truth. Sometimes I tell Tucker we are not allowed to start this show until I make a joke that makes Seth Keysor cry with laughter before it actually begins. Then and only then do we have any chance whatsoever of putting together a good podcast. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you, I've got good news. I made Seth laugh. The groundhog saw its shadow a couple of weeks ago. The offseason is officially here.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
You could have drawn this line. You could have called this conclusion at any point since the end of a Super Bowl that ended by halftime. But I feel like we're actually truly there. We've looked back at left tackle. We've looked back at what went wrong. We looked back at the scheme. We looked back at the steps that got us there. But now, my friends, we're here talking about the 2025 NFL Draft and what this team needs to do in the offseason. And as someone who, following up on a previous story on Only Weird Games, as someone who has spent a good 20 hours over the last couple of days working on his NBA 2K franchise, I am in the right headspace.
Yeah.
And thanks to Nate, I got good bang for my buck for $20. So you feel like we're actually there, Seth? You feel like you settled in? You feeling like your funny bone's been tickled by an intrepid podcast host and you're ready to roll?
It absolutely is. I've got an article that went up about how important this year's draft is, and right now I'm currently working on an article that's entitled "The Nick Bolton and Trey Smith Problem." We are in the off-season, baby, and Seth, what's that problem? Well, you're gonna have to read the Chief of the North newsletter tomorrow, aren't you? That's how we get you.
Man.
2025, Seth, is money hungry, is clickbaity, I'm gonna make so many lists this offseason, guys. I'm gonna rank so many things. Oh, it's gonna be amazing. I'm here for the offseason stuff. Let's face it. Before they massacred my boy in Madden, franchise mode, yeah, the games were fun. But like you hit a point where it's like, I know I'm gonna win that Super Bowl in 5 Pete. But like
5 feet,
man, first round pick in 2023 or 2030 could be anywhere.
They didn't have great AI with the trade models back then.
No, they didn't.
So it's like, oh man, let me check. Well, I've got 7 first-round picks, so I think I ought to be able to rebuild the franchise here now that my quarterback named Seth Jones, because Madden can't pronounce Seth Keysor, has to retire. That's right. I named my quarterback Seth Jones because if it was Keysor, they would just be like, number 7. And I hated that. So This is the time of year where 31 teams get to have fun.
Can I just tell you, Seth?
You can.
There's not. Again, by the way,
it's easier if I pretend to give my consent.
If it's easy, if you needed an update, which no one asked for, he's still not in school, y'all. He still didn't have school today. Okay. So in a lot of ways, there's no better joy than calling someone in the league and hearing in the distance the TV say, with Kevin Harlan's voice.
Nate, it's the only reason I haven't completely left my volume there. Kevin Harlan saves that game.
Saying Hayden Taylor out loud.
Oh!
It's pretty great. Especially at the cost control that we got it for our, the boy may never go to school salary cap.
So Jazz is currently watching my nieces and nephew in another town, so my sister and brother-in-law can go party somewhere in the Caribbean.
Seth's wife goes to a different school. We get it.
Right.
Yeah. She's Canadian. You wouldn't know her.
Actually,
she was
Seth,
here.
Seth, if she
Is
was
she
Canadian,
go-
she'd be closer
hey.
to you than she is right now, I believe.
Is she gonna pick a side tonight? Is she gonna pick a side?
Look, we've all picked a side. But I think we can all agree that as much as these might be divided times, we can all agree that when America has a sporting event against another country,
Yes.
there's no divide. There's no anything. We are in one line saying there's one thing we have, people, and it's sports, and us taking sports way too seriously.
Man,
a proud
I
American
have a
tradition.
Team USA hockey jersey in my closet right over there. I thought I could do a funny bit and go put that on, and I just don't think I'm going to right now. I don't think I am ready to go into mascot mode for this particular nation right now. It's a lot.
You know what? It doesn't. The context doesn't matter. None of it matters. All that matters is I don't care what. Did you boo our anthem? Fight on sight, baby. That's the great thing about hockey, by the way, is that they could just drop the gloves immediately. That was one of the wildest things. I forgot how incredible hockey is. You just see two dudes looking at each other. It's like, look, man. As soon as they've dropped that puck, I'm not going to try to grab that puck. I'm not going to play the sport. I'm going to just drop my gloves, and you and me are going to beat each other senseless. What a sport.
What a sport. I also want to say this too. Not only is it great that they let you know ahead of time we about to fight, and the officials are like, cool, I can take a breather.
Yeah.
It's
Sure,
also,
guys.
It's also amazing too that I want to remind people that anytime there's a hit in football where you go, I don't know, Jim. That's too much violence. Go to a hockey game when the two dudes that just fought, one of them is gonna put that dude through the glass, through the boards. It's not healthy. I mean,
there's a level of purity to it, though.
Yes.
So, okay, the closest thing we've seen to that in football this year. Do you remember? I don't remember which game it was when Justin Herbert almost got sacked.
Oh, he
and
died.
the defense. Yeah, and the defensive player grabs his ankle and starts to twist it.
Oh,
and you see an offensive line. Have you seen that clip?
Yes, I've seen it. Yes.
Oh my good. And you see the offensive lineman see it and just barrel into the guy, and you see Herbert try not to laugh while he's pulling him up. There's something deeply satisfying about that the NHL and hockey has grabbed onto. Like, oh no, we'll police this ourselves.
Yeah, hey, Josh, can you recreate the little siren in Kill Bill when it's about to go down? Because that's what Seth just described.
I don't think I can do that. I don't think I should do that for our headphone-wearing listeners.
It was such a hilarious moment because you just see the offensive lineman like, hey, and just goes for it. It's like, people were talking about, Myles Garrett with the helmet incident, which he shouldn't have done, of course. But then you get immediately after he does it, a Pouncey brother's like, I'm going to jail tonight. there is in a very somewhat unhealthy way, but also a healthy way. There's some purity to that. It's like, well, I guess we're going to fight now. And it's like, yeah, you know what? Okay. And hockey
it's like
gets
the
that.
ninth most dangerous thing that can happen during a hockey game.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like we shouldn't worry about it. I think it's
blades
fine.
on ice. How in the world does this work?
That is a bizarre sport, man. Man, we're going to strap some knives to our feet. And then
back to the Canadians. Again, this is what Canadians bring to the table. Which I think jazz is in the lore of how this episode started. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. What side you picking, Jazz?
Oh, that's a good point. Everyone in Minnesota should have to undergo that question because it's just you're too close to the border to know for sure.
Well, the thing about Minnesota you should know is Minnesota takes its hockey very seriously, and so nobody, and I say this tongue in cheek, people, calm down. Nobody hates Canadians more than Minnesotans. All right, we are the watchers on the wall.
Yeah,
keeping those Canadians. I can't even get through that bit. Sorry. We are
bloodthirsty Canadians.
By the blood of my people are your lands kept safe.
You ever see how big a moose is, man? You gotta be ready for those things. Those things are massive.
This bit's really funny. I can't talk.
What is the plural of moose, by the way? Because I almost said mice or mooses or meese, and I didn't feel like any of those were going to work.
I think
Antlers.
it's not antlers.
That's what they're called. Plural. Antlers.
We are here. We are protecting you from timberwolves, from moose, from various forms. Did you know Wolverines are a thing that exist, people?
Mm-hmm.
My dad saw one cross the road once. That sounds like the setup to a joke. It's not. He called me, right? He's like, I just saw a wolf cross the road. I didn't know they could do that. It was great.
That's where Jazz is.
Mm.
She's trying to find Wolverine. Let's talk about what the Chiefs are trying to find in the 2025 NFL Draft. Seth did a little bit of a deep dive into some things over in the Chief from the North newsletter. Not that far north, though. You can read that at mnchiefsfan.substack.com. A lot of the retrospective stuff, Seth, you kind of look back at these recent draft classes.
Yes.
And I think you're going to be able to just sort of pull from what you need from that section. People should read it. Look, you'll see the recent draft classes and all of that. But I think the big picture of it all that you kind of get to at the end, proving here's what they've done, here's what's important. I think the big picture is the thing that people need to keep in mind right now. I think, if I'm representing your thesis correctly, the issue right now isn't the Chiefs need to go get the right tackle at 10 overall.
Right.
It's something quite different than that. What do the Chiefs need to replenish? What do they need to accomplish in this year's draft?
The biggest thing from my perspective is not fixing one position. It is reestablishing cheap talent. And I always hate to refer to human beings as cheap talent.
I heard last episode. No, you don't.
Thank you for saying that.
That is that is really the way teams can be built are a variety of ways. Anyone who tells you, oh, it's just one way, that's just not true. You do have free agency, you do have undrafted free agents, you do have the draft, you do have trades. The best teams utilize all of it. But the simplest way to have depth and talent across the board rather than just at a position or two is the draft. Mm-hmm. And what I would say is people don't realize, maybe I certainly didn't realize till I started writing about it, how much the Chiefs going from a team that had won a Super Bowl and was a perennial Super Bowl contender, really great, to being a dynasty, which they still are. Losing a Super Bowl does not make you not a dynasty anymore. Was obviously, you've got the foundational five that I always call them, and I know we've joked around about all these extra foundational guys, but, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, right? You still need
foundational five of the core nine.
Fair. I'm willing to accept that.
Yes, the foundational five of the core nine. You need to build around that. You need to. Yes. We saw it's really hard to win a Super Bowl, guys. Really, 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 really hard. If you have one weakness and you get the wrong matchup, we saw what can happen. And so having that kind of depth across the board, having talent across the board, having it in multiple areas, having enough talent in some places to make up for weaknesses in other places, that's so important. And I would postulate that people have really underestimated how much the 2021 and the 2022 draft have really solidified the foundation of the team for the dynasty run. And without those two drafts, I don't think you have a dynasty. Here's the thing. The NFL, you really are resetting like every couple of years because of how contracts are layered. Nate's holding up three fingers every 3 years, and that's at best. That's if you have like rookies that develop, that sort of thing. What we have happening right now, the 2021 class, which I think people legitimately forget, that was a good class. You trade away your first-round pick for only 2 years of cost-controlled Orlando Brown Jr. Still kind of a win, honestly, when you consider how everything else went and you look at what left tackle can do to your team.
Right.
That's a big deal. People, I think, value above average a lot more than they used to.
And let's remind people, too, Seth, they did not acquire Orlando Brown thinking he was only going to play there for 2 seasons.
Right.
So you acquired him with the belief that your organization your quarterback, your head coach, your infrastructure would lead to a more traditional extension of that player after the first or second year if the player wanted to maximize his or her value within the system. As we talked about last episode before, all that kind of got exacerbated by some miscalculations during the second year of that process. But yeah, normally if you're trading, I want to remind people, if you're trading away a first round pick via the draft for whatever reason, you want that asset to come back to be a part of your team for 3 to 4 years, so that you at least get the proper, timeline of what that pick should give you. Of course, now first round picks have the 5th year option, but that's essentially to help mitigate you finding a way, if that player succeeds, to keep that player on your roster for 7-8 years of their first 7 or 8 years of their career. So yes, at the time when they made that trade, they did not think it was only going to be for 2 years. But to your point, Seth, the left tackle has been an issue ever since Orlando Brown has not been a member of the Chiefs.
Right. And that's where, so you include him as part of that draft class, even though it was only for 2 years. 2 years of above average left tackle, cost controlled play. That's not a terrible return for the end of the draft first round pick. It's not great, but
you also won a
all.
Super Bowl.
Yes. So, and with that, though, the rest of that draft, you get Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, Noah Gray, and Trey Smith. And what you have there are 4 legitimate contributors, not just like special teams contributors, and you need some of those, but legitimate starting, full-time, above average contributors, including one that's an all-pro level, Creed Humphrey. That gives you a foundation of cheap labor for years at 4 of 22 starting spots, if you want to think of it that way. You really should think of it more in terms of like 30 contributing types, but that's a big deal. And then you get to the 2022 draft, which I don't know if we want to take a break first, Josh, but just to really lay it out. So you've got multiple guys, 5 guys if you count Brown, from that draft that are contributors for multiple years. That's 5 guys that are just laying out there, and then including 4 now when it goes away from Orlando Brown Jr. Then you get to the 2022 draft, you trade Tyreek Hill, get a boatload of picks, and here's what's much more important than getting a boatload of picks. They hit on so many of them. You get a legitimate superstar at a position of value, at a premium position in McDuffie. You got good players at premium positions in George Karlaftis and Jalen Watson. And you got solid contributors, as in starting level guys, in Cook, Chenal, Williams, Pacheco, and at least one guy that's shown enough to get on the field at times. I know everyone's down on Najee Johnson right now, but getting that many guys.
Special team ace.
Team ace. You literally have 8 contributors, with multiple of them being high-level ones. That is what?
Steven Sleven said even Darian Kennard has 3 rings.
He's the guy. He three-peated. He figured it out. He cracked the code. Good on him. So this
Charles Haley or Darian Kennard, who did it better?
So this is where you have to consider something in terms of the roster. Let's say you've got 30 guys that are really important, okay? Give or take.
Yes.
In terms of seeing, at least 50% or more of snaps on offense or in defense.
Does Darian Kennard have 3? Does he have 3 rings? Is that right? Does he have 2 with the Chiefs? If he has 2 with the Chiefs, Darian Kennard has as many Super Bowl rings as he has games appeared in.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Okay, back to you, Seth. Sorry.
No, you're absolutely fine. The thing to keep in mind here. Let's say you
technically it says 2-time Super Bowl champion. Now that is because he technically has no game logs for 2023.
Okay.
But I believe, was he on
the practice squad or something?
He was on the practice squad. I'll dig into it. Just keep going.
We'll get to the bottom of this, folks.
Yeah. We're gonna address the real issue here.
Yes, but he was assigned to the practice squad on August 31st of 2023. 3-time Super Bowl champion,
3-time NFL game appearer,
a 3-peater. So
and a 3-peater.
If you've got 30 important guys, like really genuinely important guys, In 2 drafts back to back, you grabbed well over a third of that, which means the rosters had that for cheap for 4 years and then 3 years. And so what's happening now, the 2021 draft, Creed and Gray got re-signed, right?
Yes.
They got extended, but now they're not cheap labor. Bolton and Trey Smith probably going to hit the free agent market. You lose them. The 2022 draft, we're a year away from that. McDuffie and Karlaftis have 5th-year options, but those get more expensive, of course. But everyone else, after this year, you're talking Brian Cook's a free agent, Leo Chenal's a free agent, Josh Williams is a free agent, Jalen Watson's a free agent, Isaiah Pacheco's a free agent. You are losing not core guys, not foundational guys, but you're losing a buttload of snaps. And if the Chiefs want to be able to replace that, it's not an emergency this year. It could be next year, depending on what happens with the 2023 draft and the 2024 draft, how guys develop in that, right? Maybe Hunter Norzad becomes what they want him to be. Maybe Kingsley Suamataia becomes a terrific left tackle or right guard. All those things can start to kind of, coalesce. Maybe FAU blooms in year 3, whatever, right? But you are about to lose a third of your important guys in terms of cheap labor. That's why 2025 is so important. It's not the idea of replacing one position. If you have one hole on your roster, you know what you do? You overspend in free agency. It's like, okay, we are a left tackle short. We're going to give Cam Robinson more money than he deserves to solidify the position. When they gave Joe Thuney a top-of-market deal, I don't think any Chiefs fans regret that. I don't. They needed to do it because of the position they were in. So if you have one position, you can address that with free agency. Team building, roster building, having a foundation, you kind of need to nail this next draft because so far, and it's way too early, especially for 2024. Way too early for 2024. So far, you're not getting those same number of returns, even though you've gotten a few good players out of each of those drafts.
So what's realistic to expect in 2025? Seth will answer that question after the break.
Oh, thank God.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
Just for kicks, I can also go ahead and just read you the list of every single member of the Kansas City Chiefs currently under contract for the 2027 NFL season and like a real contract that is probably going to be there. Patrick Mahomes, Chris Jones, Creed Humphrey, Harrison Butker.
Wow.
They could get out of that though if they want to. Noah Gray, they could get out of that by then if they want to. And then the rookies from last year. That's not super uncommon. That's not like a huge red flag, but it's a good reminder of the every few years nature of this. You have 2 great draft classes in a row. You have 2 stinkers in a row. Not that we're in total stinker territory, but theoretically, you have 2 great ones, you're building the dynasty. You have 2 terrible ones, your team is having the floor drop out. So, Seth, with all of that precursor in mind, what's the plan here? And where is your level of confidence with the last, 5 years of history now kind of being a somewhat, I guess the first 5 years of the Veach era, a somewhat closed case, and the last 5 years here overlapping a bunch, a lot of info. Where's the arrow pointed?
The thing to keep in mind, and one of my favorite sites is PFR's draft history.
Yep. If I start typing CH, it auto completes to my bookmark for Chiefs draft history in my browser.
For me, it does that or snap count or Chiefs cap calculator. It's just automatic.
I'm sorry, I was wrong. I actually go to snap counts first now. This is after regular season as opposed to in the offseason. Right. Definitely defaults to draft history.
So the big thing to keep in mind when you think about the direction things are trending up or down, you have so much unknown with 2024. I know a lot of fans are really down on Kingsley Suamataia. I guess and maybe I want to take a look at how he did at those snaps after the Trey Hendrickson disaster. Because if he looked fine, not great, not bad out there, that's such a massive improvement. And so let's say Kingsley Suamataia they decide, hey, he really is the answer at guard, and you can swap him in there, and he's fine or even good, that changes that entire dynamic of the 2024 draft class, right? Or Hunter Norzad becomes that guy, or Jared Wiley turns out to be a really competent tight end. That changes a ton of things. As of right now, what you've got in that draft class, Xavier Worthy, looks like a good pick. Really good pick, even. Jaden Hicks, great pick. And we're out. That's what we've got so far. Now, again, way too soon. But here's the thing to keep in mind when we're talking about having a foundation. We're talking about numbers. You need 30 guys. You can't get 2 per draft. That's problematic. You can, like, if you... People expect there to be, like, when I asked Twitter, what's a successful draft class, I had so many people respond, like, you should be getting, a really high-level starter in rounds 1 and 2, and then a starter in round 3, and then some rotational guys who play quite a bit in rounds 4. And I was like, that is not how this works. That's, like, all-time draft stuff. Look at anyone's page. Yes. I don't care. People say, well, no, it's like that with Howie. Howie took Rhaegar before or whatever the guy's name is, before Justin Jefferson. Yes. Everyone has more misses than hits in the draft, without exception. Everyone has more misses. But you can really lean on an incredibly strong draft, especially if it comes on the back of a really strong draft like 2021 and 22. So I say all that with a long road to a short thought, or not, yeah. The 2023 draft, as of right now, you have Rashee Rice and Shamari Connor as your quote-unquote hits.
Yes.
Morris, if he's functional, as a guy who can kind of plug and play, I'm fine with that. So you could call that 3 hits.
He's like Cam Irving.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you comfortable with the swing tackle at the bottom of the 3rd round?
Wanya Morris being Cam Irving and Shamari Connor being a not very good slot cover corner / a pretty good free safety or do it all safety.
Say his name.
That's a double.
Just say his name.
Whose name?
Whenever Nate says say his name, I never know who he's.
You got a lot planned for wherever Keandre Coburn is now. What do you?
If Shamari Connor can be Dan Sorensen, is that a good selection?
No.
No. No, he's been better than Dan. Shamari Connor's rookie year might have been Dan Sorensen's best season.
Whoa!
Chiefs legend Dan Sorensen. That was not fair to him.
Take his name off the take his name off the Ring of Honor. Take it off.
Yeah. So the thing to note though for both 23 and 24 is as of right now, you've got a couple of hits, but not that same depth.
In less than a month, Seth Keysor dunked on Dan Sorensen, and Tom Brady got his name wrong when explaining how excellent he was in the Super Bowl 55.
No, yeah, he was really excellent at the game script going a certain way to where the Chiefs had to desperately sell out.
I know when Nick Sorensen's blitzing. I'm like,
I know where Nick Sorensen. Which, to be fair, he didn't really need to know his name to torch him, and he didn't. He also treated Tyrann Mathieu like he had a target on his back that game too. But
he did.
So here's the big thing. This is why the 2025 draft is so important. You really do want to hit, even if you don't hit on any of them as well as you hit on, say, Rashee Rice or Trent McDuffie. I'm not saying you need to get a star with any of them. You know what you need? You need a few Jalen Watsons. You need a few competent players who can fill in, not be a weak spot, be above average. You need to continue to fill out the corners of the roster. And by the corner of this roster, I don't mean like the final 53. I mean that 30 who actually play. Yes. And you can, if you grab just like Tershawn Wharton, undrafted, right? If you can grab a guy there, that's awesome. That is like those little things, finding like one undrafted guy a year who can legitimately be one of those 30, that's a huge win.
Just so happens to have an alligator as a pet.
Well, if the man could hang on to the
I didn't know Mike Caliendo had an alligator as a pet.
And so I know I appreciate you giving me a lot of runway there, Josh.
Remigio has an alligator?
The real man, Remigio, he looks like he can play. Honestly, I don't understand why they have to go through all this stuff.
Look, man, if he get that little jitter in him, he might have something.
As soon as he learns the offense, give him 3 or 4 more years.
Yeah.
To be fair, he was getting buckets. I saw you.
Yeah.
I saw he was getting buckets in week 18 against a defense that was trying.
And that's where that's probably a conversation for another day.
Yes.
How we're making
Look, do I like Nico
decisions.
Remigio? Sure.
Of
Am I going to
course.
give him Sky Moore's roster spot? Hell no, not in year 4. Breakout season.
And that's so like
He
that's,
finally knows the offense.
people tend
Okay.
People tend to focus
I can't.
I thought Nate had Sky Moore as a training camp casualty. Not on my team. He's not. That man was a draft pick.
Do you, which I think explains in some ways, Seth. I think it explains how good they actually have drafted and managed the roster. That you cannot,
One of the greatest drafts in team history. They took an unplayable wide receiver at 54. It's one of the greatest draft classes of all time.
Right. And so when the question comes, when we do these hey, just keep in mind for, hey, what's the biggest roster need? Who could be cut? Obviously we just did our first mock draft, which
Got some questions about that too. We got to talk about
Look,
that. Maybe not today. It might be a
man.
Thursday. It's probably a Tuesday.
yeah, I mean, look, I don't care.
It's February. Yeah, it's February. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
February.
Yeah.
So, we're just spitballing right now. But to Seth's point, you want to keep doing well in the draft because by doing that, you have less cap casualty like candidates to where the people that you could be cutting for some minuscule cap savings is a guy that you drafted and it just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that does happen. The Sky Moore thing, I get it, and you can always find other players that they could have picked. I still to this day, when I look at his college film, I get what they were looking for there. They looked at those releases and they said that's a guy that can create separation quickly, and it just his functional strength is like on the same level as Xavier Worthy's, except Xavier
move like
Worthy's. Yeah, he just doesn't move like him or track the ball like him.
Oh boy.
Or, a few other things.
Let's just stop you right there. Thank you.
Oh,
Let's take a break.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
On to the next thing, Nate. We know they got to draft well. We know that is an incredible key for this particular football team, as it is for every football team. But your offseason to-do list is now available over there on The Athletic, over on the New York Times, over on New York's Athletic. There are a few beats through this that I think are especially interesting, but I think my first genuine question for you on the path here, Nate, is what was the first step amongst these for you? Where did you know you needed to begin?
I think everything begins with who you believe is your biggest priority in terms of free agency. We went through this exercise last year about, is it L'Jarius Sneed? Is it Chris Jones? Vice versa. The Chiefs at the Combine essentially made the choice that we are going all in on trying to retain Chris Jones. They franchise tag L'Jarius Sneed to let everybody know we would like some compensation based on him playing a premier position and obviously, helping the team win 2 straight Super Bowls. I still think this offseason begins with Trey Smith and the Chiefs trying their best to retain him. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I know that we did not have this information at the time on Tuesday, but with the salary cap potentially expanding to $281 million. Okay. I want Josh, do this for me right now.
Okay.
and the great thing is that one individual player can only take up a certain amount of that thanks to the
Correct.
franchise tag.
I saw all
Correct.
of that.
I knew
running through
exactly where he
Seth's
was going.
face. Saw the whole
Josh,
Yes,
do
sir.
me a favor. Look up what the National Hockey League's salary cap is. Look it up and get back to me in a few minutes. So it could be 208.
I have it.
281 million, right? So that gives you a little bit more of a chance to maybe squeeze a couple more $1 million into this year, and you can spread it out a little bit more with the assumption that the cap, as usual, will always go up. The Chiefs will try to retain Trey Smith. As my colleague Diana Rossini told Dan, was it Dan Patrick yesterday, or it was actually Rich Eisen, excuse me. Diana Rossini told Rich Eisen that perhaps Travis Kelce is leaning towards returning for the 2025 season more so than retiring. Again, the pendulum could shift next week. Who the hell knows? But that's a positive sign. You will, if that happens, of course, you will smooth out his cap hit. You could take on the salary if you're close for Trey Smith, but that's where this all begins. And then, of course, based on the positional group, how can you fix left tackle in a way that is serviceable for the 2025 season, but also you might be right back to the drawing board in 2026, especially if Kingsley Suamataia is transitioned to guard and Wanye Morris, as I think we mostly believe, is not a player capable of being an every down left tackle. Josh, what is the National Hockey League's salary cap?
I have an excellent article here over on the NewYorkTimes.com/athletic saying that it is currently $88 million and it will rise to $113.5 million over the next 3 seasons.
A sport where you run the risk of like
Dying.
a knife attached to a foot
Mm-hmm.
coming at you.
Yep.
And
I
they're
will
like,
say
"Yeah,
that's higher than I thought it would be because there are 23 players on an active roster.
Correct.
and you know what?
Per
That's a good
player,
point.
that's not bad. NHL,
Yeah,
I'm a little impressed. Hockey,
Yeah,
You
and
said
some of them
eight-
are
you
just
said-
paid to be enforcers. What a great,
Right.
what a world.
Just to be big
What a
and
great
tall.
sport.
Yeah, it's awesome. So you're telling me it's how much again? 81 million?
88 right now.
88 million. Guys, the NFL salary cap for your 2025 season could be 281.5 million. Come on. It's nuts. So,
Hope Clark Hunt's got it. Start digging in the couch cushions.
Well, you know, there's always a floor and there's a cap. We usually talk about the cap more than the floor. So, the other thing that I want people to really think about, and I suggested it on Tuesday, I believe, too, is, I can't wait. I can't wait to come back from Indianapolis and just roll through the tape of running backs, because kids, they need a running back bad. Like,
they do.
bad.
Someone with a combination of explosiveness and vision. Pacheco took some steps forward his rookie year, and he could have just been struggling to get back in the swing of things.
Correct.
But he was not playing as well this year, once he came back.
But even as we learned this year, Seth, you cannot live with one running back on your roster.
The
You
Chiefs are the
can't.
only one who learned that this year, Nate. The rest of us knew that already.
That's a fair
The
point.
Chiefs left training camp with Pacheco,
What?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and me, and they were like, "We'll figure it out."
And finding a home run hitter, at running back who can be a 3-down guy, and again, like, you know, it just depends on how early you take these guys.
Right.
That would be a really big deal, because it would be really nice to see like
Now,
a 20-yard run every now and then. Like I
What's
watched
that?
Gibbs with Detroit, and I'm like, that seems kind of awesome.
Where'd they take
Now-
him? Where'd they take him, Seth? Where'd they take him in the draft?
I think they took him in the first round, and everyone laughed at them. Well,
I'm
who's
glad
laughing now?
I'm glad you mentioned Gibbs. This is something we're going to have to talk about. The 12th overall pick in 2023, and he gets like half the workload. Like, just
That's
when we're
right.
talking about positional value,
That's
he's
right.
fabulous. I
Yep,
love
and that
watching him
matters.
play.
Oh,
But
for
the way
sure.
that we are going to, this offseason it's going to be another one. I can tell it's going to be another one of these.
Yeah, it's gonna, and I'm not really. I have finally, after watching how things could fall apart with even a seemingly great fit like Clyde, I'm finally off of running back in the first round. I just can't. It's just not a sure enough thing.
Would you trade? Now Now, look, this is going to take some convincing from Clark Hunt. Would you trade out of the first round, get an additional second round pick, use one of those for a running back? That way you have two second round picks and 2 third round picks. I'm just saying,
I'd rather use that on a more valuable position, but if it has to be a running back, then I guess that trade back's okay. Why do we have to convince Clark Hunt?
Can you convince Clark Hunt of this? I'm sorry. Did you not understand
Clark
my question?
like that 5th-year option more than I realized? Is that they plan on using? I'm not doubting you, Nate.
Who's part of head? Who's head of the finance committee?
I think about that a lot. Yeah.
Just hey, who's in the negotiation table with Amazon? So I'm just hey. First round pick's pretty valuable.
Every now and then, Brett Veach just gets like a random text at like 3 p.m. during owners meetings, like, "Hey, remember how I said we couldn't do that deal? We can. It's gonna be okay. Just put all the money in 2029," which is what Lurie is doing, by the way.
Yes, and by the way, they admitted it. Congrats to them.
It's like, what's happening in 2029? That's odd. That Jalen Hurts, his cap hit that year is $98 million, and someone else's cap hit is like $72 million. It's all insane. But those are things to consider. I don't hate the idea of trading out of the first round. I know we're about to go off the rails. Remember that thing I texted you guys right before we started, like how I would just guarantee
that you'd be on just as soon as you finish with your explosive diarrhea. That's the last text I have from you, I think.
Whoa, let me go back and double check that. Whoa.
That
explosive indeed.
Is this because I called you? You know what? Never mind.
Yeah, it might be. You wanna unpack that one?
No, I don't. No, I really don't. That's the thing. Man, unbelievable. And that, by the way, look, Perfecto in the comments, TMI. That is not accurate. How dare you, sir? Maybe I did say that.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, look, I'm 39. Things happen. I have no idea if this is true, but it could have been. So I think the Chiefs, they do have several specific weaknesses, but you address specific weaknesses through targeted free agency or trades. Seattle doesn't need DK Metcalf. And so those are things that you can do in a more...
Hey! Don't. Why are you talking about them? Just quiet.
The Seahawks don't need Donkey Kong. I need another Metcalf thing.
Hey.
He's in the last year of his deal. They would have extended him if they were going to.
Hey, there's another guy.
The Seahawks don't need Donkey Kong or to show a little lower leg at that one fancy gala that's got 3 letters.
Hey. You think you still got some juice left in him?
Ugh.
The Seahawks don't need Donkey Kong, New York Met. Oh, hold on. I said it.
Hey. Is he under contract? I don't think he's under contract.
Seth is pulling up the over the cat page right now. I can see him typing.
He's kind of.
No, Nate is getting excited about someone else completely right now.
Hey, I didn't say anything.
Look,
they're a Tyler Lockett team. They're such a Tyler Lockett team. How old is he?
The Chiefs don't need another receiver that I can lift up with one arm. Okay,
Seth, are you saying that the Chiefs do not need to sign another wide receiver who's 5'10", over the age of 30, and runs routes like Justin Watson?
I like Tyler Lockett a lot.
I'm just saying.
Oh, dude, I would have done crazy things for Tyler Lockett to be on this football team 10 years ago.
You really went for it with 10 there. I'm sorry. I dragged us off kilter. We're going to have so many things to say, but you can make targeted moves to improve specific positions.
Holy smokes, he's 33 years old.
Dude, yes. He'll be 33.
You use the draft to improve the roster. So I don't know. What is the offseason to-do list? This is something we keep talking about.
Left tackle was on there. Trey Smith was on there. We're still in the offseason to-do list. The running back thing was an offseason to-do list line item.
Wide receiver.
Hey, Seth.
Give me
Yeah,
a guy who can play
Yes,
the boundary
Seth-
for the
Seth, you
love
know
of
what?
God.
Hey, guess
Seth,
what,
I think
Seth?
the Chiefs will do that. I think they will sign an ex wide receiver, someone who used to play wide receiver at a very high level. I think they will sign.
Hey, Seth, in my offseason to-do list, it's, hey, how about you get somebody who's a little tall and has decent speed?
Yeah.
Just saying.
Whose
DK
feet,
Metcalf is pretty fast.
whose feet don't autopilot to the slot, ideally.
Let's
Right.
just they have Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice are a gorgeous fit together. Once they figure out, okay, what are we going to do with some of these quick throws that we gave to Rice last year? We've been giving them Xavier. You know what? Do more of them because they work with both those guys. Unless, you get tackled for only a 1 yard gain in the Super Bowl and then you literally don't try it again the rest of the game. But other than that, I mean, whatever. The comments are killing me right now. I got to stop looking at them.
Look, man. And the last thing I'll say, and we have a great example. His name is Jerry Jones. And
A great example of what?
A great example of what is the exact question.
He takes too long. So they should have did this yesterday. They should do it today. They should do it tomorrow. The last thing is they got to start getting back on the timeline of signing the best players of their own homegrown talent. They need to sign Trent McDuffie yesterday.
I saw someone in the comments ask about if he could be this time around's Tyreek Hill. There's a few things with that. Corner is not as expensive as wide receiver.
Correct. It's not even expensive right now in relation to where the cap is going.
Correct. And let me just tell you, if the Chiefs traded Trent McDuffie, and it was not what they got for Hill and then some, I would lose my mind because he is an incredible corner who can play literally anywhere. Those are guys you build around, not trade. The Chiefs aren't. So in 2022, here's what I would say. Let's say if they have a draft in 2025, then you might be in a position you got to start having conversations about trading away a blue chip to really replenish. That's where 2026 could become a little emergent if they're not able to do some other things. But Trent McDuffie is easily, they would get the most haul for him, but they're not as expensive. Corners are not as expensive as wide receivers, and they're arguably just as impactful.
Correct.
So
And the
that's
Chiefs the Chiefs are in a much better leverage point right now with McDuffie than they were with Hill. Hill wanted to reset that market. So, and I mean, this was all reported at the time. The Chiefs were talking to Hill about a contract extension for a while before eventually pivoting to that.
Yes.
With McDuffie, I hope it's never getting this contentious with him, but it would be extremely easy for the Chiefs to go to him with a good offer this offseason and for him to go, well, what if I don't sign it? Well, if you don't sign it, we have 2 years of team control without even talking about the tag. There's just year 4 and the 5th year option.
Mm-hmm.
The longer you wait to pay that out, the more expensive McDuffie gets. Also, if you're a player on a rookie contract, you're obviously, I hate even referencing this, but it's an obvious fact of life. Your ACL could disappear at any moment. Your quarterback could run through your leg and end your season that was about to be a career year for Rashee Rice, right? It's a physical sport with 22 guys on the field at a time. Security matters, and that is not at all. I'm no Seth Keysor. That's not my argument for McDuffie taking a $12 million annual deal for the sake of the team. I'm not anti-worker like that. Seth agreed hard enough with that I know he wasn't listening. But I think it makes sense for both sides to get that deal done this offseason. I think we all think that.
Yeah, you could. I don't think they would want to do this, but you could make Trent McDuffie the highest paid cornerback in the league right now, and it would still be a bargain.
Totally.
Yep.
And he would not be the highest paid corner at any point 6 months later.
Forward. Yeah, moving forward.
after.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
And
so the reason I bring up Jerry Jones is this, Seth. Does Jerry Jones's star players that the Dallas Cowboys acquired through the draft, do they like him?
They do not.
Don't seem to.
And that's because he always waits until their contract is in its final year.
Thank you.
Or after that year is done. And that's where like Micah Parsons, like they're going to, they might lose him.
I don't know if might is even necessary for that sentence.
Yeah. And so it's really, oh, by the way, Zach Martin announced his retirement today. I just want to tell Chiefs fans, I've watched this film in part with people that really understand O-line play told me to watch him to understand how guard play should look. Imagine Joe Thuney, but 10 pounds heavier, stronger, more athletic, and somehow even more technically perfect. And he's like that in the run game too. The guy is unbelievable. One of the best snaps I've ever seen was when Chris Jones beat him one-on-one on a third down for a sack. And I remember Brandon Thorne tweeting about it, just like, it does not get more high quality than this. This is like, it's like beating Trent Williams. Hey, shout out to Mike Pinnell. But anyway, the Cowboys, they always wait. Hey, look at Jamar Chase.
I have a Zach Martin stat. Since you brought him up. I want to, because it's just mind-boggling. Zach Martin played 11 years, and in 2020 and 2024, he only played 10 games. With the exception of those 2 years, he made the Pro Bowl every time.
Jesus.
And it's like, well, Pro Bowl. We talk about Pro Bowl. Zach Martin played 11 years and was an All-Pro 7 times.
God.
That's so hard to do.
It's crazy, man. And we have a ball-knowing audience. I don't think I'd recognize him if he walked past me in the grocery store. You know, I'd be like, wow, that's a big man that seems like you probably move people around for a living. But like, you put a helmet on and you are playing guard. We all know what Joe Thuney looks like. None of us know what he sounds like, of course. I wouldn't have known Zach Martin's face without having his headshot next to it. And he's one of the most incredible things to ever grace a football field. It's crazy. Sorry, Seth. Back to you. I just wanted to share how good Zach Martin was.
He's a good enough player. Like, he's on that Shields caliber of player. Just perfect at the position. No weaknesses, and everything's a strength. It's freakish watching him play. It's like watching Lane Johnson play right tackle right now. It's just freakish.
7-time first team All-Pro, by the way. Second team the other 2 years.
Jesus.
That's just so ridiculous.
Good Lord.
So but by signing guys early, you are, by necessity, speeding up the process in which you're going to be paying them more against the cap. But here's what people have to understand. Like, so let's say you sign Trent McDuffie after 3 years, which they should. What people will say is, well, now you got to pay them sooner and you're losing 2 years of cheap control. That gets built into extensions.
Yes.
They use that money. They would say, well, Trent, and I'm just going to make up numbers right now, okay? Well, Trent, you'd only make $5 million this year and $15 million the next year. So, okay, $20 million. Mm-hmm. You know what we're going to do? We're going to call that your signing bonus. And we're going to hand you a check for $20 million today. And then we're going to do all this stuff. And it's going to be an extension. And we're going to tack on these 3 years to those 2 years. And we're going to do it at X amount per year. And you are able to do all this finagling with it to where it doesn't cost you any more those 2 years. And you have a market controlled. Well, not market controlled. You have a cost controlled that avoids the market for the 3 years thereafter. As opposed to
and it guarantees his roster spot for past his rookie contract, what his original rookie contract would be in a year or more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why a player might do it, because there's a lot of uncertainties in the world. And those of us that have never had anyone try to hand them a $20 or $25 million check, and if you're doing this early, you can make that bonus a little bit bigger too, because it's going to be going over the course of 5 years. And if you want to see the opposite of that, look at what the Bengals are doing with Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase probably isn't signing for anything less than 38 mil, 40 mil a year.
He's looking for $40 million a year.
Yeah. Today's price is not yesterday's price. It always goes up, and it's just going to become more and more with the cap going up. So you lock in sooner rather than later. If you know he's a core guy, it doesn't have to cost you cheap years, and it helps you. It helps you down the road. It's a really good way of doing business.
Is he a headache, Seth? Is he what they describe as a headache?
And that's another thing that separates him from Tyreek Hill, who, now that he's in a location where they have to allow him to talk. I'm not trying to be like, you hear a lot more. And the guy's a guy with opinions and likes to talk and whatever. So am I. But
Yeah,
I might be
and
kind
both
of
of you scared me with a microphone in your hand.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, I might be annoying in a locker room too. But there are Trent McDuffie is a guy that you can build a defense around. That's just how it is. Now, is he on Chris Jones's level? No. But Chris Jones should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So there's levels to this. But that's where, like with McDuffie, one thing you can do right now that allows you to formulate a plan for the next 5 years is extend McDuffie. And it doesn't have to hurt you this year and next year. So that would be on my offseason to-do list if I were them. Very different with George. I think Karlaftis is probably a guy you for sure let play out his 4th year. And maybe just exercise that 5th year option because George is a good player, but not like what McDuffie is. And so, again, there's levels to this. Also, offseason to-do list for me. Yeah, please do.
One big picture, like offseason, just like you could argue an offseason lesson, but not. No, it's not. It's not one of those. Just for everyone to keep in mind because I can hear it in the way that we're all talking about these contracts. Mm-hmm. Most people might know this already who listen to the show already. I just want to kind of put it out there. You almost never get to sign a player to a good contract. When a player hits free agency, they are getting paid more than what they are, air quotes, worth the vast majority of the time, particularly someone at the top of a market. If you are the best corner on the free agent or whatever position, George Karlaftis, if you're George Karlaftis, you're the best defensive end on the free agent market. You are going to be paid with multiple people bidding and on some level also betting on where you're going to be going, like where your trajectory leads you, all of that. George Karlaftis is a player that I would be trying to re-sign in the Madden franchise we were talking about earlier when they don't realize that, he's a $12 million player. I'm throwing this out there. Nobody make this a hard line on George Karlaftis. That's a $15 million a year player. I'm going to give him $15 million. Well, if he's a $15 million player on a Madden algorithm, he's getting 30 on the open market because
absolutely
that's the Nick Bolton problem. It's the Trey Smith problem. It will probably eventually be the George Karlaftis problem. Not to take your story from you, Seth. I realize that is the phrasing you used earlier. That's where all of that tension comes from, which also, as Seth said previously, that's why the draft's so important because you're on the other end of that spectrum. Then you are underpaying for the first 4 years of Creed Humphrey. You might be overpaying for the first 4 years of Darian Kennard, but you don't get to find that out until after the pick's been made and the players are there. So it's just there's so many connected gears there that I just think sometimes we gloss over because we are so in the midst of those gears. But it's something to keep in mind as we do this.
Absolutely. The other thing, the only thing, since we're about at an hour here, as a tease for what should be coming out tomorrow, we'll see how life treats me. The Trey Smith and Nick Bolton problem is not the market value. I mean, that's certainly part of it. I'm going to touch on that real quickly, that those guys, they're about to hit the market. They made it through without getting hurt, which is
amazing.
A huge piece of leverage owners have when they're negotiating.
Didn't get hurt, didn't get exposed. Like, both of them made it through the rookie contracts as very good NFL football players. Congratulations, you've won the lottery.
Yep.
What I am going to be writing about is I think each of them has a problem that isn't really a problem unless it's in the context of giving them a top of the market deal. And it's more true for Bolton than it is for Smith, but it's also true for Smith. So I'm going to be writing about that if I were the Chiefs, and with Trey Smith, it's really hard. I would not give Trey Smith a top of the market extension. And there's reasons for that. I'm going to be writing about that, which is going to be really tough to write about a player that I really, really like. Probably, spoiler alert, for 2 years if he's the same guy, probably something similar that I'll be writing about George Karlaftis in a couple of years. Because sometimes you have players that are good, very good even, that you really like, but they have a thing that keeps you from being able to pay them top market. So that's what I'm going to write about with them. Like, what's the problem that each of them has that leads to that for me?
There we go. So we'll talk about that more on Tuesday. We can talk about DJ Humphries on Tuesday as well. Nate, when are you leaving for the Combine? You'll be there for Thursday's show with that, right?
I leave this. I will be in Indianapolis on Tuesday. Let's just say
brother, really? Don't they start running and stuff on Thursday? This is all you're doing, all media elbow rubbing and talking to. Oh boy. Okay.
Look at me. All right. Let's.
Also, it says Kelsey watch on the rundown here. Nate mentioned the Kelsey thing earlier. Diana Rossini saying he's leaning towards coming back more so than he is leaning towards retiring. We'll follow that story as it goes on.
Yeah.
Nate, you can take us out of here just as you prepare yourself for the combine the way you're about to. All right, cover your face.
Fascinated for what the Chiefs will say next week in Indianapolis about Travis Kelce, because I don't think they'll have the full answer. But again, they may have more information than they did a couple weeks ago. Now, I'm just going to do something real quick, okay? I'm just going to, man, the game is the game, okay?
The game is the game.
One of my best friends in the industry tweeted this almost a year ago to the date. It's my buddy Robert Mays of the Athletic NFL podcast. You should check it out. Quote, as I've gotten older, I've realized that the NFL Combine is also a performance test for the media. Can you go a week surviving on nothing but steak, whiskey, and starchy sides while staying up past 3 a.m. every night?
No.
Only the elite can perform at a high level all the way through. Kids, that starts on Tuesday. Okay? Now, I want you all to understand that there were some things that occurred last year, if you watch this show, that cannot be replicated this year. All right? Now, I also want you to understand, too, it is one of the most manic times, oversaturations of the year. And my beloved employer has asked me to come to my second home, Indianapolis, 2 days before this thing even starts. So, thank you, T. Smith. Nate is absolutely elite at all of those. Kids, the last two, I don't know how much I got left in me. And so I can sympathize with Travis Kelce in this regard, because the moment you start talking about not staying up till 3 a.m., talking to God knows who, that's when the jersey's gonna have to go on the rafters, Seth. But I'm gonna do it for you guys, okay? Yes, Nate's got that burden. I do, okay? I have the burden. All right. I spent a lot of nights with Wink Martindale. I did not just say his name. Okay, but you'll learn some things about certain people at certain hours of the day. Is he still in the league? He's not in the league, right? I'm good with that. He's in Michigan, right? Or did he come back? God,
I think
don't tell me he came back, because if
he's probably blitzing someone as we speak.
I know he's wearing a clean, structured hat and maybe a chain.
Or 4. So look, yes, thank you. He's at Michigan.
Still Michigan.
He cannot be there. But anyway, that's just to name a name, right? Remember that one time I told you, was it Bill O'Brien that I said he was the guy walking around with his glasses up, thinking he was hot when he absolutely wasn't hot, bleep. Anyway, look, man, I'm gonna give you a lot of thank you. Perfectly done, Seth. He looked just like that with women not his age looking at him. Anyway, let's get
Bill
to the
O'Brien?
bottom of this. Last year there was a great burden on me because we were on Chris Jones watch, and if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, me and Diana Rossini reported to you first that Chris Jones was coming back, as much as we could say it at the time without the actual details of the contract being done. So we will find out what Trey Smith's market is, and I hopefully will inform you of that.
The Vikings are going to give him so much money.
Or the Bears.
Or the Bears.
Or the
Titans. Someone
or the Patriots.
someone should give him a top of market deal.
or the Jets.
The Chiefs could be that team, but not until they've already paid Nick Bolton.
$20 million. Who says no first?
Is that all?
Maybe over a 10-year contract.